Hello and welcome to episode 52 of Pushing Cardboard, your home for military games, history games, political games, and all the assorted gossip and scuttlebutt that goes along with it. I'm recording this on February 28th, 2026. The weather here in Calgary is snowy, but we can't complain. We've had a very easy winter. The repairs to the basement continue apace if you've been following along. We're almost to the finish line. The walls have new drywall and paint, the ceiling has been replaced. My new shelves have been installed, and we went to the trouble of creating a small bathroom. No more running upstairs for my complaining knees. The carpeting should go in very soon, maybe next week. I would have liked something like vinyl planks, but then I remembered that carpet will soak up sound and not bounce sound. It'd be much better for recording podcasts and videos. Hopefully by the next time I speak to you, it'll all be done. It'll probably take a bit to get all the games back on the shelves and the books and the files and the magazines. It's going to be a process, but the end is in sight. My interview today is with Francisco Ronco. He's the designer of Castle Nuovo 1539, which I talked about in episode 46, as well as he designed von Manstein's Triumph and Coral Sea, a game that flew under the radar, but those who have it love it. He has his own company, Bellica 3G, based in Spain, though he currently resides in the US on a teacher exchange. I'm really enjoying getting to know these European publishers and designers. I think you'll enjoy our conversation. We'll also take a look at a game today, Shiloh, the First Day from Steve Carey and Revolution Games. I'm sure by now you all know how much I enjoy the Blind Sword series. Okay, on with the show. We'll have some news, some new arrivals, general historical gaming chatter, and then we'll get on to those two features. News. This segment always gets off to a robust start when we have a GMT newsletter, and one arrived last week, so let's dive in. Actually, one arrived the month before that I didn't get to, so if there's anything from that, I'll pop it in here as well. Anyway, the first item is small news for most of us, but big if you're a Mac user. There's now a Mac version of Mr. President for the Mac on Steam, so no need for any sort of Windows emulation. You Mac users can have at it. What really caught my eye, though, was when I went to the Steam page, there's a commercial for the game there. Not just a video showing features with a voiceover, a real commercial with actors portraying the president and an advisor. I won't comment on the acting or the script for the thing, but hey, someone paid to have this thing made. It's been a long time since I've seen an actual commercial for a historical or a political game. Really cool. There is plenty of info about the special Gaming the American Revolution event happening in Camden, South Carolina this fall. For more information, they post a link to an article from my pals at the Player's Aid, even though I had posted a huge article about it 2 days earlier than the Player's Aid. Am I bitter? Well, there's a link in the video description to find out more. Joe Dewhurst is looking for playtesters for Punicus, the Second Punic War. There's a link in the video description if you want to get on that. Well, you know the drill. There's links for everything I can think of in that description. Well, in the section of not there yet, P500s that they're looking for more supporters for, there's quite a few titles here. I mean, they have so much in the pipeline, you can't back everything, right? But there's a couple that caught my eye. Draken, the next game by Volko Runke in his Recon series. You think any game by Volko would be an auto-buy, but perhaps because this is a follow-up to Coast Watchers and Coast Watchers isn't out yet, maybe folks are waiting to see how that turns out. Who knows? Also, A Hill So Terrible. This is a solo Verdun game from Herman Luttmann. I mean, this would be an auto-buy for me if it was two-player. I'm not so eager to jump on a solo game, but a ton of people are solo gamers. I would have thought a solo Herman Luttmann game would be an auto-buy for a lot of people. So anyway, there was a couple. There was also a note that North Africa 40, the expansion for North Africa 41, will not be boxed, it will be bagged. Okay, here's what's new on P500. Common Sense is an asymmetrical trick-taking card-driven game by Sam London. Sam has a ton of games about to flood the market in the next couple of years. First up, Firefight Tactical and his Microverse. His Microverse has the possibility of widely loved, not just in the wargaming community. That one may be a hit. Also, new on P500 is Iron Triangle, the first game in a new series called the Line of Conflict series. It's a Vietnam game, asymmetric lane battler by Darren McGuire. I have no idea what that means in terms of a war game. I don't. I think of lane battler as a video game term, or maybe it's in Euro games. I don't know. I'm old. I don't understand, but we'll see how that works. And then Levian campaign, the Ostbot solo system. This is applicable to the first 5 games, I think, in the Levian campaign series. And I just want to read you a bit of text because I'm always a bit suspicious of bots. I find them predictable and often boring. But this is what they say. Ost will present you with an unpredictable and challenging, yet easy to implement opponent that is responsive to your moves and the current game state. You know, that's the, if that's true, that's exactly what I want from a bot. I hope they're not just blowing smoke up my backside because that's what I want. Anyway, and then finally, the next thing to the last one on the P500 list is the second printing of the second edition of Next War Korea. They let us know the next batch of games to ship in early March. Actually, I think some of them have already started because I think I got a shipping notice on the errata counters. That's the first thing. There's also shipping is Silent Victory, the third printing, the Hunters, fourth printing, and the new game, the Guerrilla Generation. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but that's coming. And then shipping in early April if everything goes according to plan. This is going to be an expensive month for me. Army of the Potomac, that's the next game after Rebel Fury. Baltic Empires, that's I think a 1 to 6 or 2 to 2. I think it's a multiplayer game. I can't remember how many players, but it's by Brian Asklev, who designed the fantastic 1812 Napoleon's Fateful March a couple years ago. Totally looking forward to that. Commands and Colors, Napoleonics, expansion number 7, the Grand Battles. Finally going to be shipping across your fingers. I think this has been on the P500 for a decade or something. I don't know, a long time anyway. Also coming, Next War Supplement number 4. And finally, 2 more games that have got a lot of people excited. 3 Days of Gettysburg Deluxe Edition. This is a remake of the Richard Berg game that's been out of print for quite a while. And then Thunderbolt Deluxe. This game's been out of print for a long time too. And this is a series of 3 games. This is the 3rd game, and it wasn't finished when Richard Berg passed away. And his friend, as I understand it, Mark Herman, has finished it off. So you can either get just Thunderbolt itself, the 3rd game, if you have the first 2, or you can get Thunderbolt Deluxe Edition, which is the new game, but also includes reprints of the first 2 games in the series. So we'll see. GMT puts in a note saying these are our plans, but everyone knows plans are plans, right? Okay, that's a lot of GMT. Closer to home, I'd like to direct you to the video I did on Sea and Steel from Neva Game Press. I did both an unboxing video and an overview video of how the game works. Check them out. I also posted a video version of the interview I did with Jose Neva for that episode. As always, just look for the links for those in the show notes. As part of San Diego HISCon's online winter convention, I was happy to be asked to be on a panel with Volko Runke and Jerry White from moderator Mike Smart, also known as Zilla Blitz. The subject was innovation in wargaming. I think it's worth a watch. Check it out. Also, Pushing Cardboard News, episode 24 of the live stream. We looked at all the games of a somewhat random year, 1977. Fun stuff. But I also did a really detailed look at the latest newsletter from Legion Games. And Randy Lean was in the online audience to provide additional information. So that's worth a watch too. Live Cardboard 25 was an interview with Tin Demption of Catastrophe Games. And we had a long look at all their products. So if you're interested in Catastrophe, check that out. And the latest, Live 26, featured a discussion on size in wargaming. What makes you consider a game big? What makes a game too big or too small? Fun discussion. Lots of chatter from the viewers on that one as well. New games on the horizon. Well, here's stuff coming down the pike. Carl Parody has a new designer's edition of his classic No Retreat Russian Front coming from his new publisher, Sound of Drums. It promises to be a complete overhaul, including new cards and tightened rules. Neva has announced the pre-order period for their next two games and notes that Iwo Jima and Steel and Sea are almost sold out. The two new games are Reformation, Fire and Faith for 1 to 6 players, designed by Clint Warren Davey, and Peking 55 Days of Fury, a 1 to 2 player game by Jose Neva himself, and it's about the Boxer Rebellion. I just got a notice that my copy of the new version of Ace of Aces has shipped. It feels like I did that Kickstarter 2 or 3 years ago, but anyway, it's finally coming. I saw some folks overseas already got theirs, and mine's being shipped. It's supposed to be very beautiful. Herman Luttman also has a new game coming from Wharf Rat Games. It's called A Forlorn Hope, and I think the Kickstarter is still underway. It's described as a World War I push-your-luck trench warfare game. This next one is, it's been out a bit, but the news here is that GMT will now be distributing it. La Der de Der, The End of Ends, or the War to End War. It's from Hexasim. This is a World War I game, obviously. Turns are 4 months, somewhat abstracted. It's fairly well received from what I've heard so far. And like I said, you can order it from GMT. Although I think if you order it direct from Hexasim, they might also have other places that distribute it. You'll have to just check. Anyway, GMC says they only have 200 copies. I ordered one because that didn't sound like a lot of copies. It's playable in about 90 to 120 minutes, and that sounds really good to me. From GMT, we'll be seeing Checkpoint Charlie. This is a solo or co-op game described as fast-playing but deep. The setting is 1960s Berlin, and you are heading up the British SIS. You send your agents on missions trying to outwit the KGB and the Stasi. GMT is so hyped about this game, they did a blurb about it at the top of the newsletter rather than just at the P500 edition section, so they must really like it. A new game from Amabel Holland at Hollandspiel, Ray Roads. Ray Roads is a game of apocalyptic capitalism. If you buy Hollandspiel's games, you know they're often the political, social. They're engaged with the world for sure, and this is no different. This definitely is a bit of a dark satire in terms of Amabel's worldview these days. I'll quote from a bit of the PR. You control corporations which have ruined your home world, making it unable to support life. In the last years before your species goes extinct, you propel massive space trains through the void, powered by the sun you're intentionally snuffing out, so that you can crack open the remaining planets in your system and maximize your value to shareholders. That's fantastic. Yeah, if we could just wipe out the whole idea of maximizing shareholder value, I think we'd have a much better world myself, but we'll leave that discussion for another day. VUCA has also put out a newsletter. I won't go through all of that any more than I did the GMT one, but the first item up is last call for pre-orders for Operation Overlord. That's a block game, really interesting looking block game on D-Day, obviously. And then they note that the next step going to printer for them, they've got 6 games here: The Far Seas, In Forest to Heaven, Pacific Fleet, which I think I might have talked about a couple of weeks ago. That's a game on the Pacific War, but from the point of view of Japan. So it starts in 1937 against China. Gateway to Falaise, 30 Years of Misery. I think that's the 30 Years War, of course, and that one looks really good. And then an Italian edition of New Cold War. They also note that VUCA is getting into licensing deals. The first one is for a Chinese game, or actually series, called Coming Wave. So that looks pretty interesting as well. I think there's a barely tapped market in getting games from Asia. We've seen quite a few Japanese ones, but cool to see something coming from China. Worthington has Wilderness, May 5th and 6th, 1864 coming. This is part of their Civil War Brigade battle series. As listeners know, I played one of this series and it had some bad rules problems, but so many people like the series. I think maybe I just played a bad one of the bunch. Anyway, It's still available on Kickstarter for a late pledge if you're interested. And then the other thing that caught my eye from them was a very different small box game from the design team of David Thompson, Trevor Benjamin, and Roger Tankersley, titled The Irregulars, Lawrence of Arabia, and The Irregulars, Rogers Rangers. You take on the role of opposing commanders across two historically inspired conflicts, issuing orders to your regular and irregular units. Regulars are powerful but slow and easy to track. Irregulars are fragile but stealthy and capable of unleashing devastating surprise attacks. This is 2 games in 1 box, obviously. And yeah, I mean, I'll check out any 2-player game by David Thompson. Looks great. And then finally, one from Compass, Mr. Lincoln's War by Mark McLaughlin. This combines 2 old 3W games from the 80s, Army of the Potomac and Army of the Tennessee, into 1 box. I think it's actually both games in 1 box, and maybe some rules for combining the 2, and of course with updated graphics, counters, and all that sort of stuff. Okay, well, that's a fair whack of new stuff coming down the pike. Let me mention that this episode is sponsored by Cube for Me. They have the best trays, the most versatile tray. Check out my website or newsletter for my link. Use it to order their trays. They'll know I sent you. And not only that, you'll get 5% off your order. They're the best trays, bar none. I also have been talking to the folks at Cube for Me, and happy news, they've got a prototype for a new tray for storing magazine games. I'd been talking to them about this about a year ago. I sent them some info on the different types of magazine storage containers that I had and that I was frustrated with, and told them why they didn't work as well as I wish they would. And now they're close to having something that works for them and hopefully addresses some of the problems that I said. One of the big one was all the ones that I found were too small to carry European games, and I subscribed to Vivictus, so I needed to fit that kind of stuff. Anyway, check out Cube for Me. Use my affiliate link. What's on the table? Terry Simo and I concluded our epic Death in the Trenches game recently. I totally recommend that game. Lots going on, lots of ways to veer off from history, but not in crazy directions. Really fun. Anyway, we have moved on, and we're playing the From Salerno to Rome game from Sergio Schiavi and his Dissimula Publications imprint. We started with a 3-turn intro scenario. There's a lot to like here. Each side has a limited amount of activation points it can spend. These get spent in turn segments called impulses. Activation points are not plentiful. You really have to choose which divisions or corps you're going to activate. So there's a fair degree of asset management involved over on top of the hex and counter smashing. There's a cool artillery system where divisional and corps artillery have limited range, but each impulse you can move the counter to wherever you have units. It doesn't really represent the batteries themselves. I really like Sergio's games, and I hope to interview him soon. He tells me his spoken English is not something he's comfortable with, so maybe it'll be a written interview, or he suggested maybe I just send him some questions and let him video his answers, and he'll send those back to me. Anyway, it works out. I really look forward to hearing from him. He's got some really cool games that I think should get more notice. New games to my collection. Well, a real whack of lock and load titles this week. David Heath had offered to send me a review copy of something almost a year ago, but it never arrived. As I'm in Canada, he had them send it from his Canadian distributor, and they'd missed sending it. So by the time we got that sorted out, the distributor was out of stock, so we had to wait for them to get back in stock. And then it was forgotten about again until I spoke to David recently, and it was finally set. And then in typical lock and load fashion, it wasn't just one game. David sent me 4. First Victories, Wellington versus Napoleon, JU-87, Stuka Ace, Point Blank Winter Victory, the expansion to the Point Blank series, and World at War 85, Blood and Fury. David sent these along with a note emphasizing there's no expectation of a review of each one, just to do with them as I see fit. But I mean, seeing that generosity, I'm surely going to do something more than unboxings with these. I don't know. It'll take a while to get through them all. And I have to say that that Blood and Fury is a very intimidating box. It must be. It feels like you could do curls with that box if you wanted to improve your biceps. Oh, and then one other thing, just before recording time here, in came the latest game from Form Square Games, Dawning the Sacred Heart. It uses their Limits of Glory system, But it's not strictly a Napoleonic game this time. Here, the battle is the Civil War uprising in the Vendée in opposition to the Levée en masse. It appears to have a little more politics added into the mix on top of the unique mechanics of the rest of the Limits of Glory system, which I've detailed before and I really like. So I'm really looking forward to diving into that one as well. This episode is also sponsored by Noble Knight Games. If there's an out-of-print game you're looking for, they're your best chance. If you're looking for used games to avoid the new and shrink price, they've got thousands. They've even take pre-orders. And if you're looking to sell games, they're your best choice as well. Check out the link in the show notes or the newsletter or on the website. Use it to get to their store. That way they'll know I sent you. I'll get a little kickback. I'll spend it on games. I'll tell you about them. Then you'll head back to buy more games. And it's a virtuous circle. Everybody's happy. Okay. Shiloh, the first day. I'm a little behind on my Blind Swords gaming, but recently I got caught up with plays of both of Steve Carey's latest games, Shiloh the first day and Gettysburg the first day. Today I want to talk about Shiloh. It's the one that I've played the entire main scenario. Steve Carey has said he only wanted to make a game on the first day of Shiloh because the battle was essentially decided that day, and I think he's correct. The Confederates under Albert Sidney Johnston made a great surprise attack on Grant's Army of the Tennessee. The attack was very nearly successful, with the Union finally holding the line rather than being driven into the Tennessee River at Pittsburgh Landing. The attack was made because Johnston knew he had the Union temporarily outnumbered. Don Carlos Buell's Army of the Ohio was on its way, and Johnston wanted to decide things before it arrived. But Grant and his Army of the Tennessee held, and Buell's forces arrived the next day, effectively ending the hopes of the Confederates, who were now led by P.T. Beauregard, Johnston having been mortally wounded. I've described the Blind Sword system in detail in previous podcasts, videos, and on the web, so I just want to concentrate today on what makes this volume of the series interesting. This is one of the larger Blind Swords games with 2 maps and a hefty number of units. The map has the Tennessee River along the top, center, and left, with Pittsburgh Landing up near the top left-hand corner. All along the right side is Lick Creek Ridge. We start with the majority of the Confederate forces just on the north side of that ridge. North is to the right in this configuration. The Union forces are quite spread out, as Grant famously did not expect a Confederate attack. Furthest to the south, closest to the Confederates, are Prentiss and Sherman's divisions, with the Confederate units starting just 2 hexes away, all along the line. The Union then has scattered regiments from that southern point all the way back north and east to Pittsburgh Landing. As this was a surprise attack, there needs to be some rules to help facilitate that and to model the sluggish Union response. Designer Carey has given us a bunch of tweaks to handle the first hours of the battle while the Union got its act together. The first of these is that all Union commanders, save Prentiss and Sherman, start the game in a state of unalertness, meaning their brigade activation chits don't go into the cup. You'll remember that Blind Swords is a chit pull game where the division leader chits go in the cup. When you pull a division leader, you choose which of his brigades to activate. So, we will get very little activity from the Union side right off the bat. With no chits in the cup, you get no activations. These non-alert divisions become alert one of 2 ways. If one of their units gets fired at or has a line of sight to the enemy 3 hexes or less away, the chit goes into the cup for the next turn, not right away. Sluggish. There's also a Union event chit that lets the Union player activate 1 division, but again, next turn, still sluggish. Finally, after 4 turns, any Union divisions not alert become alert. Additionally, when a non-alert brigade first becomes alert, they have to roll on a chart to see how many of his units start with a shaken morale marker. It's just a rough start all around for the Union. The first turns are even worse for the Union. These first 2 turns are denoted as the Confederate surprise turns. During these turns, any Union infantry unit that suffers a panic result instead is reduced. Much worse than a panic result where you get a shaken marker and retreat 3 hexes. Steve Carey also gives us a new Blind Swords concept, the Wrecked Brigade. More on that in a bit, but during the surprise turns, any unit of a Wrecked Brigade that suffers a panic result is eliminated instead. The Confederates get a couple more advantages during these first 2 turns. When a CSA leader is drawn from the chit bag, they don't have to roll for activation. They all get an automatic full activation. And as well, the game starts with Confederate Claiborne's division automatically getting the first activation with an attack on Sherman's division directly to their north. Finally, the Union doesn't get a key event in the first 2 surprise turns. When they do, they only get 1 key and 2 random events compared to the South, 2 keys and 3 randoms. Big difference. Those rules go a long way to hamstringing the Union player and not letting them manipulate the situation just because the player knows more than the units would. The Union is fragile and sluggish during these turns. One other thing. Of course, at the beginning of the game, only the Sherman and Prentice chits are in the cup for the Union, but they're not the regular versions of those leaders. They're chits with severely reduced activation numbers. Prentice starts as a 0 and Sherman starts as a 2. On turn 3, Prentice becomes a 3. On turn 4, Sherman becomes a 4. And Grant arrives. The Union has no commander-in-chief for the first 4 turns. And then finally, on turn 6, Prentice becomes a 4 and Sherman a very commanding 5. So even though those leaders are there, they're a bit bewildered themselves. Okay, well, not everything is rosy for the rebels. All along the front lines of the Union are camp markers. The Union weren't dug in, and the attack famously caught many of them at their fires cooking breakfast. The Confederates were tired and especially hungry. Every hex around each of these camps costs Confederate units an extra movement point to go through, modeling the fact that many soldiers took a break to grab something to eat or to loot the Union tents. All these camps are on the southern edge of the map where Sherman and Prentice are. It'll take the Confederates a few turns to break through those initial lines and slog their way through the camps. But once through and to the halfway point on the trip to Pittsburgh Landing, there's no more camps. It'll be slow going. The map is almost entirely covered in woods and dense woods. There's plenty of roads and trails to expedite things, but as the rebel player, drawing chits in the wrong order with units trying to advance up a road will foul up your plans. More critically, all these woods mean that units are almost never supported. As per the exclusive rules, units in woods, dense woods, and marshes can neither give nor receive support for adjacent units. This also makes rebuilding more difficult as unsupported units have lowered cohesion values. And worse, in this game the rally event can't be used to rebuild, only to remove morale hits. Given all these woods, there are rules that keep artillery from being entirely useless. First, they're allowed to move into a woods hex at the cost of all their movement points. Many of the other games, they're just not allowed to move into woods. And then, as well, in this game, artillery may fire from a woods hex, but at a maximum of 3 strength points, regardless of the actual strength of the unit. Oh, wrecked brigades. I think this is the game where the concept was introduced. You check for wrecked brigades as part of the end turn procedures each turn. A brigade is considered wrecked if it has at least 1 unit in the eliminated box or on the broken track, and all of its onboard units are depleted. If so, the brigade is marked as wrecked. All of its units on the broken track get moved to the eliminated box. The brigade cannot be activated when its division leader is pulled from the cup. In each end turn phase, a wrecked brigade can either withdraw, meaning retreat 1 or 2 hexes without coming adjacent to the enemy, or rally, meaning remove a morale hit or a low ammo marker. Wrecked units can still defensive fire, opportunity fire, defend in close combat, all that stuff, just nothing offensive. They can even provide support. They just can't be activated and do any of the regular orders. Any wrecked unit that is forced to make a break test or panics is automatically eliminated. In short, you want to get your wrecked brigades away from the enemy so as to only count as a single enemy victory point rather than the 2 they will count if they're eliminated. As a final bit of chrome, the Union has gunboats. They don't come into play until later as the Confederate gets closer to the river in Pittsburgh Landing, and then they sort of work as indirect artillery. They can dish out morale hits but no losses. Still, very cool. I think this is the first time I've played with gunboats. Victory is fairly straightforward. If the rebels get a unit on Pittsburgh Landing, the game is over immediately and they win. Otherwise, the game is decided by victory points based on step losses and Confederate control of Union headquarters hexes along the way. There's a handful of those scattered. The first part of the game is the excitement of the Confederates tearing through the Union camps on the leading edge, while at the same time, the Union struggles to get Prentice or Sherman to respond, to get the men retreating. And then, of course, the rear units do nothing. But slowly the Union units will activate and the front units will attempt a fighting withdrawal as the rear units come forward to bolster the lines. As the Confederate, my thinking is that a generalized attack all along the front will stall before you get to the river. You'll need to pick a spot to try to make a breakthrough and get past a bunch of the retreating Union. This may happen more than once as the unit frantically tries to reestablish lines as they retreat. Due to the woods, almost every fire attack will suffer at least a 2-column detrimental shift, meaning there's going to be a lot of close combat rather than fire attacks. On the other hand, all those woods keep you out from under the eyes of the Union artillery. The game can go a full 24 turns. The Union has 18 brigades, the Confederates have 17, so it's a decently large game. It would be, I think, a long day if you try to do it all at once, but it's probably easily done over 2 days. It's hard to tell. I play by a vassal and PBM quite often, so it's hard to translate those timings. Anyway, there's so much to enjoy here. The initial surprise assault is unlike anything we've seen in Blind Swords, really. Its success and the way the Union units slowly become alerted will be different every time you play, meaning, of course, there's plenty of replayability, though I find that's one of the great features of Blind Swords in general. Given all that must be set out to model the initial surprise attack, it's worth noting that the exclusive rules are only 13 pages, and much of that is modifications to terrain types as we see in all the Blind Swords exclusive rules now. I didn't find it a heavy lift at all. And if you don't want to play the whole 24 turns, of course, there are smaller scenarios. I played the Hornet's Net scenario twice. It's a real doozy. You start right on top of one another, and there's a special rule saying you can't use maneuver orders. You can just attack or defend. It's wild. Oh, well, all that said, surprise, surprise. I'm a fan of this installment of the Blind Sword series. Tons of actions, special fog of war table for the big scenario that uses 2d6 rather than 1d6, and a wide range of ratings for the leaders and units. I wouldn't recommend it as someone's first Blind Swords games, but if you know the system, give this a play. You're going to love it. Okay, today's interview is with Francisco Ronco, the man behind the Spanish publishing imprint Bellica Third Generation, or Bellica 3G. Francisco is temporarily residing in the US, but I spoke to him about his designs, his publishing plans, and the wargaming scene in Spain. Here's our conversation. Hello, welcome to Pushing Cardboard. I'm delighted today to be joined by Francisco Ronco. How are you, Francisco?
Very good, thank you. Nice to be here with you.
Yeah, I'm very glad to finally hook up with you. I've been so excited by all the designs and designers coming out of Spain. It seems like Spain has got a really burgeoning wargaming scene, or maybe it's always been that way. Maybe it's just I'm just finally hearing about it.
Yes, I think yes, that the wargaming community in Spain is very vibrant, and we have really, I think, the second largest market in the world. After the States, I
Wow.
sell most of my games in Spain and other companies also. And you have to take into account that we have, I think, 9 or 10 companies producing war games right now in Spain. Not all of them are only wargaming companies. They sell all their type of games like Devil and others. But 9 companies is a good bunch for such a small country.
Yeah. And some of them are coming over here. I've got a game or two from Devere, and I can't think now, but I've got 3 or 4 Spanish companies now that have made it onto my shelf all the way over here in North America. But you're in North America now too. You are not, like, currently you're in the US, is that right?
Yes, we are living in Chicago, Illinois. My wife is a science teacher, physics at high school. So we are here, I think, for 1.5 years more. We have been living in Chicago for 1.5 years. We are teaching. That's all.
Yeah.
We are teachers in Spain also. I teach philosophy, and my wife teaches the same, physics.
Oh, fantastic! So it's like a part-time, like, go to the US and teach in America for a couple of years on a sort of an exchange sort of a situation.
Yes, it's very different to live and teach in this so different country because the education system in Spain is very different from the one here in the States. But for us, it's an opportunity of improving our language, our English, also for knowing having different experience, meeting different people, and knowing more about the world around us.
Yeah. I can only imagine how different it is. I was thinking, I don't know about American high schools. I'm in Canada. We definitely were not taught philosophy in high school. We didn't take any philosophy until we got to first or second year of university.
Yes, I know. In Spain, usually students study at high school 2 or 3 years philosophy.
Oh, I think that's a wise choice. I think we'd be better off if we had it over here as well. Well, we're not here to talk
Yes.
today about philosophy and teaching. We're here to talk about games, game designing, and you also you're the head of is it a company? Is it a collective? The Bellica third generation. It's like a design studio, but you're not the only person who designs for it, right?
Yes, because we have a company, a very small company. We were more fellows in the at the beginning of the company. We began publishing in 2008. With the time, some people get out, some get bored, those things happens to human groups.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
also we have published several games from other designers because in Spain there are also good designers. So uh, I wanted to give them the opportunity to have their designs be published.
Yeah, absolutely. I spoke recently with Jose Neva,
Yes, I
and
know, I know him.
yeah, and he's just got his company off the ground too. And the first two games they put out, one was his design, and one was somebody I can't remember the other. Actually, well, I can't remember his name. Anyway, doing the same thing, which I think is smart. It spreads the workload around as well.
Yes, yes, yes.
So
We are so small companies.
so you started designing, well, probably you started the company Bellica in Bellica 3G in 2008, but you must have been playing long before then. How did you get into
Yes.
war games? Did you start when you were in high school or college,
No,
or where did you go?
when I was a child, I think I was 6 or 7 the first
Hmm?
time I met something like a war game, because here in Spain we're translated by a book publishing company. Some books that I think they were British, but I don't know. I think that they were also published in the States, in the United States, maybe in Canada, that were books of the battles, and they were
Oh,
very
yeah,
well illustrated for kids mostly. I
yeah,
think
yeah,
you know, you know
yeah,
that.
yeah, 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 yeah.
So
I
they were I think they were my first contact with wargaming, because the games only have one page of rules that were in the middle, in the blue cardboard, a very thin cardboard
yeah.
page, and my friend from old times and me spent years playing those when we were only childs. Then here in Spain in the 80s, there was a company, an extinct company that is now, the name is very similar to a new one, because the new one tried to get that that feeling from the people, that was called NAC, NAC
Right.
and
Yeah, yeah.
Cooper. Now we have a NAC War Games company, but in the 80s there was that old company called NAC, and that company I think introduced thousands of people in Spain to wargaming. They were, of course, they were war games for kids, because if you take one of these now, you will not play this, because it doesn't simulate anything. They are broken. They have a lot of problems and issues with the rules, the maps, of course. But in those times when we're only 12, 13, 14 guys, or years old, sorry,
Yeah, yeah.
you were astonished with those
Yeah,
problems.
you're happy to be pushing tanks around on a map
Yes,
and taking shots. Yeah,
that's all. Or
yeah, yeah,
whatever they were, maybe legions.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Actually, absolutely, whatever they were. Yeah, yeah, yeah. NAC is. I guess it's they've transformed, but they must still be one of the bigger uh, publishers. Or, well, I don't know how many games they actually publish, but they seem to be a big distributor of games. They seem to have a lot of titles on their website. That's for sure.
Yes, because they are not just a publisher, they are the branch of a bigger company that is Masqueoka, that
Yeah.
they sell games. They have a shop, a retailer, an online retailer, and also they have their Eurogames branch. And then they create, resurrecting the name of the old company, the wargaming branch.
Right.
And
Okay. So that's
most of the games they have published, I think, are Spanish versions of American games.
Right, right. Yeah, you see that on their website, Spanish translation, even GMT games and stuff like that. They've
Yes.
got all that sort of stuff. So you started quite young, and then you at some point you must have got into actual Avalon Hill or
Yes.
SPI games, and like we all did. Were there
Yes.
Spanish translations, or did you play them in English?
Well, initially with Spanish translations, because there was a distributor there in those times, in the late 80s, there was a Spanish distributor that introduced in the games inside or outside the shrink wrap a Spanish version of the rules that when
Oh,
we were
nice.
only childs, we read and we thought they were the rules, the real rules for the games. But I honestly have to say, all the English I know from war games
Right. Yeah.
because
Yeah. So
I learned English just to play well the war games. Because one time we play a lot of times an old Avalon Hill game called Guns of August about the First World War at the strategic level.
yeah. Yeah.
One time I took a look at the rules because the rules in English were only 12 pages or so. It was a very thin rule book.
Hmm.
And when I look at the Spanish one, was mostly 40 pages or so. So I look at the Spanish one, I look at the English one, and I search for a given rule. The ability of the Entente powers to amphibious assault in the Adriatic. And I saw the rules were different in Spanish than in English. So I made a no, and I say I have to learn English because we don't know why we are playing.
Right. Yeah. So whoever the translator was decided he maybe would correct the rule to something he thought was
No,
better.
I think that he tried to put some errata and addendas that
Uh,
were in the general, but
right.
you didn't know what was.
Right. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
You didn't
Well,
know
I
because
understand how you
he
feel.
didn't say anything about that.
Right. I've I learned French in high school, as many of us do here in Canada, but that's a long time ago. But I've been subscribing to Victus magazine out of France for the last few years, and because they have English rules for the games. But the magazine looks so good, I'm thinking I need to relearn. I really need to relearn my French just to read that magazine because it looks so good.
Yes, it's a good magazine with very good articles with people that think a lot about games and make a very good
Mhm.
analysis about the games. Yes,
Yeah, that's what I was like. The game is fine, and I enjoy the games, but
yes.
I keep looking at these articles and going, this looks right up my alley. I need more of this. So, well, did had you started? What made you decide you wanted to start designing games?
Well, that began pretty early because my friend Daniel, and I play a lot those battle books and also the NAC games and also Avalon Hill games. But also we thought that there were battles we didn't find games about. So we both began designing games
Mm,
just for us when we were kids. We have 13, 14, 15 years, no more. Um, that was the beginning, but I
right,
never thought of doing that a career or just taking it seriously. But in the end, when we were older, when we were in the 20s, I thought, oh, there were have to be a good game about the Spanish and Portuguese war against Napoleon because there are not many, and most of them are based on the English-speaking bibliography only.
right.
And most historians, British historians, didn't put in a proper place the Spanish role and the
Yeah,
Spanish army in those wars. So I
I think we're
began.
seeing that about a lot of a lot of conflicts. I saw I can't maybe it's VUCA. Somebody's got a game coming out on the Pacific, the war in the Pacific, but from the Japanese perspective, and it starts in 1937, not 1941, and
Yes, yes,
it's the same war, but it's going to be looked through a different lens. I think
a
that's very
different look.
valuable.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
and it's
yeah.
very valuable because I understand that I do not design games. I design models. Models, of course, are all wrong, but some of them are useful. For what? For learning.
Right.
So if you want to learn about history, I think it's good to read books. I read a lot, but when you play a game, you make history happen, and you make the mechanics of that happening teach you why
Yeah.
they happen, for what, who, and something like this. So if you want to make a very good model, it's not good just to rely on one part of the conflict or only one side or one vision. It's better to, as a historian, you have to check for sources and cross them just to have the more accurate view you can have.
Yeah, I also noticed that when it's the first or second game on a topic, the whoever designed it is trying to just get the topic out there. But as more and more games come on a topic, then we see designers that are going, "Yes, that's interesting what you've done in that first game, but this is how I see the. I think this is more important," and they will highlight something
Yes.
different, and that way you actually learn by playing more than one game on the same battle or the same campaign.
Yes, yes, because they are different models, and every
Yeah.
time you design a model, you put the emphasis on some point or another, because you cannot put all of them at once,
No.
because you have to make the game playable. You cannot do a game that players cannot play, so it's not worth.
Yeah, and if you're trying to emphasize anything, you end up emphasizing nothing because everything
Yes.
is completely flat. Well,
Yes, I usually,
so
sorry, I usually try to emphasize the operational level, because I think the operational level of conflict is the most easily reflect depicted on a table. You can depict in the most usual and complete way the operational level of warfare, and also for me three important things: supply, command, and uncertainty.
uncertainty, yes. It's interesting because when I was when I was in my teens, first I played tactical games, and then I played strategic games, and operational games were the ones I came to last. As I got a more sophisticated understanding of what was happening. But when somebody says to me, that doesn't know much about the hobby, and they say, well, what is this business? What is an operational game? And I always say, you've pointed it out, if it's got supply, it's probably an operational game because
Yes,
that's the key,
usually.
really. Yeah, yeah. Well, so the your was well, let me just think. Was the Campaign Commander series first, or no? You had an Age of Muskets game first.
Yes,
Was that yours, or was?
the first one I ever published was Tomb for an Empire. That was the first volume. We have several others in reserve, but we have not released them.
Right,
And it's the one I told before about the Peninsular War, or the Spanish Independence War, and
right.
Spanish and Portuguese War against the French, Napoleon. That was the
Yeah,
first
yeah,
one.
yeah. And I saw that you have that it's now called Volume One, but you have more volumes in that are. I guess in your pipeline you've got Eagles
Yes,
Rising and Vienna or Death. So, and will those be your designs as well, or
yes, yes, they are
yeah,
mine.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. What would when so when you decided to do that first one about the Peninsular War, um, do you obviously wanted to do something from the Spanish perspective? Was there anything in terms of how the mechanics work that you were interested in exploring that hadn't that other games hadn't satisfied for you, or besides the point of view, what were you thinking about when you designed that?
Yes, I wanted a game that could be played. So the whole world is a very huge scenario. So I designed a multiplayer game, but they play in teams. So you play in three basic teams. The British victory conditions are not the same as the Spanish victory
Ah,
conditions. So this is very important, not only for the whole campaign, but for all the scenarios, because the game includes 24 scenarios that can be played by 2, 3, 4, 5, up to 6 players. It depends. Some scenarios can only be played by 2 or 3, but most of them can be played by 4 or 6 or 7. Oh, sorry, 4, 5, or 6. And I try to make each task for each player manageable. So you have to manage the life and the operations of headquarters. So you have to take into account what I said before, the supplies for the guys, the movement and the operations, and the uncertainty. Because you are going to take actions, but you don't know when. If you are going to go before your enemy, after him, if he's going to move twice and you only one, it can be very different because the mechanics of the system are very chaotic. You have, of course, it's not a cheat pooling or something totally
Mm.
random. No, no, no. You decide, but you invest your resources and you don't know what the result will be.
Right. So, right. So I was going to ask if it was chip pull. So it's not as totally chaotic as that, but
No,
there's you're deciding on what you want to do, but with then then the chaos comes
yes,
in whether
yes.
your orders get followed or not.
The mechanic is very simple. You have each turn with headquarter an amount of activity points. Those activity points depend on the quality of the leader of the headquarter because we have leaders of a different array of qualities. So you has to bid your activity points to try to activate, and every player playing do the same. So bids plus the quality of the leader plus a D10 die roll make a number, the activation number. So all activation numbers from higher to lower are put in a row, and you get in that position in that row.
Right. 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 And obviously that's going to be that. It's interesting though. That game you designed in 2008, and you haven't done anything else with that system, but now you're thinking of going forward with it again.
Yes, yes,
That
because it's a
because
very interactive system. It's a very uh, engaging system for the players because when you arrive to a battle, you fight the battle in a separate table. You have another board for playing battles at the grand tactical level.
all right. So it's an operational map and then a battle board map. Yes, yes, yes.
Yes.
Players love that. You, then you design two or three games in a different system, the campaign commander system. That's when
Yes.
I haven't played it yet, but I'd heard such good things about the second game in that system, the Coral Sea one, that
Coral Sea.
I tracked it down and I have a copy now. It's in storage until my basement gets repaired, but I look forward to it. But Roads to Stalingrad was the first one. I think lots of designers their first goal at World War II is often East Front.
Yes.
What how did that game come about? How did you make the jump from Napoleonics to the East Front?
Because Camping Commander series tried to be an alternative to the Age of Musket series, because the Age of Musket series, of course, you have scenarios you can play in half an hour, but most of the big scenarios are long. And
Right,
we wanted something for 2 players only, because I told you, you can play Tomb for an Empire up to 6 players, one
right.
British, 2 Spanish, 3 French. So we wanted a 2-player game playable only in 3 to 4 hours at the most.
Mhm.
So we designed the series with that in mind. So we were talking about what to design first, and Road to Stalingrad was the first published. But we have several of them, because when I design in series most of the time, because I
Right,
think that save time for players. If they like one volume, they can go to the second volume with less amount of time spending in reading rules and understanding the new system. So when I designed the Campaign Commander series, Road to Stalingrad was the first option for publishing, because Stalingrad is a very famous battle. So we think that it could be a good option. And also, as we have designed the other one, the Coral Sea, that is more or less the same time span in the Second World War, but in the other front, in the Pacific, what we say, okay, both two. Stalingrad first, then Coral Sea. But we have another. We have other about Barbarossa. We have another about Hannibal and the Second
yeah,
Panic War
right.
that were
The Punic War,
designed
yeah.
and tested for testing the system. That's what
Well,
I was talking. I usually, when I design a system, I want to design and test the measure of the system. What is the less and what is the most of the system that the system can handle. I do not design one game and then try to make a series after the game. No, no, no. I previously designed the series and then put some games into the series.
That's basically how Volko Ronco designs things these days. He thinks of the series before he thinks of the first game. But
Yes.
I'm interested that the first two games were the East Front one and then the Coral Sea one, and it's interesting to think that that you could take the same system and go from one place to the other. Now, the East Front is big, but the Pacific is bigger. You know, lots of times when you're going from one
Yes.
to another, the scale in the Pacific gets so much different, and so much of it is across the sea instead of across the land. What was it like to try and take the system that you'd originally worked on for the East Front to such a giant naval front?
Because it not only fits with the Pacific Front, the third volume was about the First Punic War.
Oh, right.
And the fourth volume, that will be published in a few months, is about the struggle between the Ottoman Empire and the Spanish Empire in the Mediterranean in the 16th century. And all of them use the same rules. Because I told you before, I designed the system, so we try different scenarios, and we designed the system with three aspects, three parts, three interchangeable parts that are the exclusive rules. You have only a few pages of serious rules, and then you have 2 or 3 pages of special rules that make difference, that make a big difference. Also, the units, the counters, not only are different because they are different conflicts or different fronts, but because they have different uses. And the sea counters, the naval units in my system, in campaign commander system, is very different and take different functions than the land units. The land units take some, perform some actions, and the naval units can also, for example, transport resources. So they can supply the land units, but not the opposite. The land units didn't take with them the resources. You have to rely on the communication net and the transportation net to supply by land the land troops. So this this has changed a lot since the First Punic War to the Second World War. But we have found some points because the system is very light. It's not a detailed system. It's a light system. So I told you, you can play in 3 hours any of the games. So we have we have identified several points in the performance of operations and campaigns during the history that has been abstracted into the mechanics of the system. And the third are the battle sheets, because you don't have a combat result table. You have battles and you resolve battles by playing events. You draw from a cup several and a given number of events. You have good events, bad events, average events. You have a lot of things different, and you play those events. So changing the events, changing some aspects of the units and cards. We have cards because it's not a card-driven game, but it's a card-assisted game, and cards also allow for changes in the rules or in the effects of the
Right.
rules.
Yeah, yeah.
Though making those changes is not difficult to translate from Stalingrad to the Pacific.
Yeah, it's amazing. But I think I think that you make a good point. In a way, a deck of cards is like another part of the rules if they're used in a game-assisted way, because generally cards, the rule is the card supersedes whatever the rules are. And
Yes.
so you slip some new rules into the players' hands without them even thinking that they've had to read more
Yes.
exclusive rules, right?
And saving for them time reading rules, because they don't only need to know what the card does when they have the card in the hand.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. It's the less time spent reading exclusive rules, the better. That's it's sometimes you get a game that has 4 pages of series rules and 12 pages of exclusive rules, and you go, I think you just should have made one rule book here.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
so you've got the 3 volumes out now, the including the Punic War one, and you've got this other one that's coming. So this is a system just like the Age of Musket system. This is another system that's you've got a few games sort of in the hopper waiting to be published.
Yes, we have more games. Also, some of them are not serious games because we are going to release another game, a different game from Tomb for an Empire about the war against Napoleon in the Iberian Peninsula, but with totally different approach. And it's not my design. It's a design of Rasmus Larsen, a Danish designer that has made a very good block game, card-driven game about the war against Napoleon, and it's totally different because you can play the whole war in 8 hours or so.
Yeah, perfect. You you have some of your most of your games you publish through Bellica, but
Yes,
you've also placed some designs with other companies like your von Manstein's Triumph.
yes.
Didn't NAC publish that, or who was your publisher for that?
Yes, Knack War Games was the publisher for Manstein's Triumph. Yes, because I think I have more ideas and projects that time. So
Right.
putting a game into the table is a huge amount, it's a huge investment in time. So as I make this as my night job, I don't have so much time. So I take some of my projects and gave to other publishers so I can focus on my own publishing company and my own designings, and other publish some games from me. So I published this, and just now has been released another cousin in the family that is Castelnuovo 1539.
Yes, I played it. Yeah. From De Beer. Yeah.
Yes, yes. No, no, no. Draco,
Oh,
Draco
Draco. Yeah,
Ideas.
Draco. Yeah,
Draco
yes, Draco.
Ideas.
Yeah.
Draco Ideas
Yeah.
is the publisher
No,
of this one.
yeah, no, I do. I've played it. Yeah, I have it. Yeah. It's
You know.
I love that game in that that's a game that few people on this side of the Atlantic will. It'll be a new history to so many people, right? It
Yes.
might be. I mean, it might even be new history to some Spanish kids, for all I know, as well. But that's the thing about our hobby that kind of keeps me jazzed is the way that everybody knows about Gettysburg and Stalingrad and
Yes.
Waterloo, but I'm always learning, especially from smaller publishers, about these conflicts that I knew nothing about, and then it's like a whole new world. And then you play the game, and then you go, well, now I gotta find a book about this because I need to find out more.
Yes. Yes, so common. And it's one of my traits. I prefer designing games about not so common military events because there are a lot of battles, sieges, campaigns that are
Right.
not depicted on the tables. And also, I also prefer to reflect also Spanish events. Spanish military history is huge and it's not on the tables right now. So we are beginning to put in the Spanish military heritage on the table.
Yeah, it feels like with as you said, nine companies, we're going to see more and more games that have Spanish history in them.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like even in the last few years, I've got more games that have Spanish things in them uh, than I had in my past 30 years of wargaming. Uh,
Right.
uh,
Yes, you're right.
what's it like though to you publish your own games and then you turn over von Manstein's Triumph to Knack and Castelnuovo 1539 to Draco? Does it feel sort of like I've had to give up control of my baby?
Well, I love my babies, but I'm not that type of people, that kind of people. I understand that many decision has to be taken by the publisher, I am only the designer, so maybe I like or dislike something, but as the whole, I think that both projects has been very well depicted. So I can withstand not controlling everything. No, I
Right.
don't have
Yeah.
to. I have enough controlling my own publishers.
Well, Castelnuovo has all those great wooden pieces. They're fantastic. And then I don't have von Manchin's Triumph, but the art for that, the cover art is fantastic. So
Yes, it was from Ivan Cáceres, the designer, the graphic designer. Ivan Cáceres, do you know?
I do not know. No.
Ivan Cáceres was the graphic designer for Mansion's Triumph, also for Almoravid from GMT,
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah.
also he designed the original game in the family, Santa Cruz in
Oh,
1797, 97.
and that
So
Santa
he
Cruz,
designed the game and made also the art because he's a
the
good
art. Yeah,
artist.
yeah. Oh, yeah. It's gorgeous. That Santa Cruz game. That was the original. That's the rules you based Castelnuovo on.
Yes, yes,
Yeah, and you're
and for
republishing
Manstein.
the Castelnuovo, or sorry, the Santa Cruz
The
game
Santa
is.
Cruz, yes, yes.
Yeah.
He's now in the printing, so we will have it, I think, in a few months.
Oh, so speaking of that, how do you get your games across the water? How do people in the States and Canada get a hold of your things? Do you have a distributor here, or it's got to be a
We were,
complicated
we
process?
had in the past we had a distributor here in the States, but now no. Now we only sell to several retailers. Noble Knight is the one that buy most from us.
Right.
Uh, Unfortunately, oh, I have lost my name. Other retailers has also our games because they buy them from us.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that's happening, but it's a hard way to go to have to be the
Yes,
publisher, but also have to keep in track with all the not just a couple of wholesalers, but a whole bunch of retailers.
yes,
Well, I've
it's
uh,
hard.
I've got a great retailer here in my town, so I'll have to put him in touch with you because
Of
he's
course,
got he's a
I
great
am
he's got a
totally
huge
open
store. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
to
yeah,
new
yeah,
partnerships. Yes, of course.
yeah, yeah.
Yes, I
Well,
have tried with several other wholesalers, but they were not interested.
yeah, well, yeah, it's a very strange world with international trade these days. So I'm sure a lot
Yes,
of companies, a lot of wholesalers are way more conservative in terms of their purchasing than they might otherwise be while they wait to see how things shake out. Yeah,
yes,
the 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 one you've got another campaign commander coming out. I mentioned it on my live stream the other night. The White Sea game. Tell me about that. That
yes.
that was another. That was another. I think that was another topic that it was like, okay, I don't know enough about this. I should find out what this is all about. This is the Ottomans. This is the Ottomans versus Spain game.
Yes, it's a Ottoman against the Christians because the Christian is one player, but is divided in two branches. Mostly the Christian player leads the Spanish troops and the Italian allies, but also there is the Venetian Empire. But the Venetians were not always involved in the war, and they pretend to survive the Ottomans by bribing and by agreement and something like this. So you have one player leading the Ottoman forces and the other player leading the Christian forces that at the beginning only include the Spanish and at the end will include also the Venetians. And it's about the 10 years that decide the open warfare between the Ottoman Empire and the Habsburg Empire in the Mediterranean that were from 1665, no, 15, no, 1565, sorry, to 1574.
Right.
Including in this time span includes we can include the Great Siege of Malta and the famous naval battle of Lepanto in
Right.
1571.
Yeah. Yes. It's funny you should mention that. I was listening to a podcast the other day about the history of the Ottomans, and the Battle of Lepanto came up. Yes, of course.
Yes,
Uh, so the time period is basically it's just sort of past the Reformation time, the
yes,
period that Here I Stand takes place, because
yes.
We're shifting
Is
and putting the
most the
focus.
beginning of Virgin Queen.
Right. Yeah.
Is the beginning turn of Virgin Queen marks this era.
Right. And it's again the campaign commander series. So I mean, obviously this system is, I was trying to figure out the difference between the East Front and the Pacific, but now we're going now we're going to the 16th century.
To the
So I
galley
mean,
warfare.
yeah, it's very flexible. Yeah, and galley warfare, like the Battle of Lepanto. This is
Yes.
we're not talking about giant ships of the line yet. This is much earlier. It's a sort of naval
Yes, of
warfare.
course.
Yeah.
Yes, and you can see the difference because if you play a naval battle in Coral Sea, most of the units will be damaged or will be disorganized and returned to port for repairings. But it's difficult to destroy a whole squadron of cruisers of battleships, or even no. Port carriers are easier to destroy from the air, of course,
Right.
than
Yeah.
even battleships. But when you go to Lepanto, when you go to the White Sea volume, you will see galleys engaging, so they get grappled and they have to aboard one to another, and you
Right.
will see galleys disappearing one after another. So the one with the most galleys can outflank the other, as historically happened, and you have to have more galleys to send reserves to the battle line, to the line of fire, as the naval battles with galleys were. Only 3 battles of galleys in those era happened, and only 2 in this span from 1565 to 1674. One was Lepanto, and one was at the following year in 1572, a naval battle that many people doesn't know it exists. That was only a draw because the Ottomans were experienced from the previous year, and they didn't want to get home close combat with the Spanish. So they tried to maintain distances all the time, and when the wind changed, they flew away.
So if they don't want to grapple and be boarded or board, how are they expecting to beat the Spanish? What was the Ottoman tactic?
Okay, no, not to grapple at all. So you have to maneuver. Also, we have to take into account that Venetians and Ottomans galleys were lesser, were smaller, were lighter, and were less. They have less guns inside. So the Spanish and many of the Italian allied of the Spanish galleys, the Genovese and Pisano, the Sicilian, they were heavy galleys. So they have more cannons, more soldiers, more oars, more weight. So if you don't want them to catch you, you can avoid them because they are slower. They are bigger, they are slower. So you have to use mostly the oars because in the Mediterranean, using the sails in battle is unlikely because if the wind change, your fleet can get dispersed all at once, and this is a disaster. So you have to maintain the formation, and you have to use your oars to avoid the enemy. So you can maneuver, maintain distance, and make fire with your cannons, and try to make the enemy lose their formation so you can crush and attack with several galleys at once, so you can envelop the galleys of the enemy flanks and something like this. That was many times the tactic the Ottomans took. And Lepanto was really a rare event because in Lepanto the Ottomans did the wrong thing, that was fight in a bottleneck against a superior enemy. So even before the battle began, the Ottomans has lost the battle.
Uh, uh, we don't like this. That's the truth. So many times in so many battles, we don't like to think about that though when we're going to play the game or play the model.
No, but the game I think has depicted very well the frame of the galley warfare in the Mediterranean during the 16th century. There are several books, galleons and galleys and gunpowder, from I don't remember now the author, but they were very good books about this, and uh, the war was about taking fortifications because all
Right,
the
right.
ports were fortified. And if you have problems with the enemy, you put your fleet inside the harbor under the guns of the port so the enemy cannot touch you.
Right.
So many times the game was about uh, a chess like movements of galleys, of fleets, taking or trying to take and besiege enemy fortresses, and a lot of pillaging and sacking. A lot.
How in these galleys, how many cannon would be on a galley? You know, like I'm trying to think of what it would look like compared to ships 200 years
Yes.
later.
No, no. A galley usually have in the bow usually 5 heavy cannons, a Spanish one. The Ottoman and Venetian only 3 usually. But also they have several more smaller cannons, mostly anti-personnel cannons. You
Right.
didn't fire to sink the enemy galleys. You mostly fire to suppress the enemy crew so your crew can assault the enemy ship. So you usually cover the troops entering inside the enemy galley because the galleys usually clash bow against bow.
Right.
Okay, so you try to suppress the enemy by the fire of your smaller cannon and your musketeers and arquebusiers that you have in a platform about the bow. So you have a lot of people there fighting constantly against the enemy. That was the main point in the victory of the Holy League in the Battle of Lepanto, the firepower of the Spanish infantry.
I played a game just last year that was on the Battle of Sluis. It's and it's like I think it's 1370 about there.
Yes,
So
14th
the ships
century.
are ships are smaller than these galleons, but the techniques sound almost the same. It
Yes,
felt like in that battle that the ships would get grappled. So many ships would get grappled together that it almost became like land going from small ship to small ship fighting, and there was
yes, yes.
they
I,
would
I
bring
think that
knights with
more,
them to fight.
yes, and I think that more than a land battle is a city combat, it's urban combat.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
you are
yeah.
moving,
That's right.
because you are moving through halls, you are moving into rooms, you have to cross rooms, you have to cross the bow of the enemy galley, so you have to suppress and advance. Of course they use also some form of hand grenades.
All right. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's I look forward to White Sea. When do you think it's going to be published? How close is that to being
Well, we are
available?
finishing the art as we have now in the printing Santa Cruz 1797. I think that in a month or so we'll send the files for the pre-production activities. I think this year, but I cannot say a date right now because we have not finished the working with the printer for that.
Right, right, right. So, but we may, if things go right, we'll get both the reprint of Santa Cruz and the White Sea. Not designed by you, but another game that Bellica has got is the Impossible War. Uh, the Guerra Impossible, maybe.
Imposible, imposible, yes. La
Yeah,
guerra
yeah,
imposible, sí, sí. Una guerra
yeah.
imposible, an impossible war. Yes, we published that game the last September. It's about the First Carlist War. It's a game designed by David Gomez Reyoso, the author of Crusade and Revolution, published by
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Compass.
yeah.
And
Big game.
it's, it's a block game, card assisted also, that you uh, in which you have to try to grab the throne from the Queen Elizabeth as the Carlists, because there was a dynastic problem, but also a very deep social and political problem in Spain. That war was after the Napoleonic Wars. And the Napoleonic Wars, we have said before, was a very giant struggle against Napoleon that made a lot of damage in Spain. But this war was even more damaging to Spain because there were more killed people in this war than in the war against Napoleon.
Mm.
Because the problem was that the ancient regime, the all absolutist regime, has to battle the new liberal regime. When they all die, when the old Ferdinand VII died, he left a very infant girl as heir, and his brother Carlos didn't want to accept he lose the throne. So there was a dynastic problem, but Carlos has as supporters all the absolutist people, and the infant only have the new liberals guys that wanted to change the regime and change the rules and make a different Spain. So the war was a very terrible civil war that caused a lot of suffering. Yes.
And it sounds like perhaps it was a war that wouldn't have happened if if the country hadn't been somewhat destroyed by the Napoleonic invasion.
And then by this, the war was between 1833 to 1840 for even 8 years. We have not depicted all the years in the war in the game, sorry, because in 1833 that was an absolutist uprising that was very easily suppressed by the government but in 1834 the remaining absolutists rallied around a very famous general in the north that was Tomás Zumalacárregui that create the army and create the guerrilla warfare that initiate the Carlist War. And then at the end of the time period, we end the game in 1838 because in 1839 there were really no military operations. There were only the conversations for ending the war because the war
Right.
ended with no clear winner. Charles have to go back to France, so the child reigned in the end, Elizabeth II, but really no things were settled. Even we have two more Carlist wars in the 19th century after that, so no many things were settled. And
Right.
in 1840, the war only lasted on Catalonia and the eastern coast of Spain, Aragon and Valencia.
Well, I think we've touched on all the things that that are out there that you or that you've designed or Bellica's publishing. But what else have you got in the pipeline? I guess you've told us a few things because both of your series you have ideas for new games in the series. What else have you got up your sleeve?
Okay, yes, we have more ideas for more games in the series, but also we have more things, not only for Bellica, but also designs by me that are going to be published by other publishers, like games that MMP is going to publish, because I have taken the great campaigns of the American Civil War and translate them into European warfare for the 19th century.
Fantastic. Yes,
So
great
I have
campaigns
made,
of the 19th century, or great campaigns of
yes,
Napoleon, maybe.
yes, but not only Napoleon, because I have designed two branches, because I have to change the tables and create some new tables, because I have added two actions to new actions that are artillery bombardment and cavalry charge, and I have created two small tables for those. And this has to be very different from the 1866 war between Austria and Prussia that I have designed and the Napoleonic times. I have designed a prototype for Napoleonic battles and campaigns and another for the 1866 Austro-Prussian War in the Northern Bohemian Theatre. So we are in the process of testing and creating a basal module so people can test, and we are ahead. Those
I
for
think
that
you're going
way.
to make people. I think that's going to make people really happy. The Great Campaigns of the American Civil War is such a hugely popular series, and you cross pollinate that with people who are interested in European warfare in the 19th century, and you have the potential for like a very big series, I think.
Yes, yes, we have a lot of campaigns to be reflected there, and the first people to be happy is me because I'd
Yeah.
like that to happen a long time ago. And I know several guys has been trying or making some attempts, but I wonder why never no one did that. Okay, I'll that I'll do.
Yeah, yeah. Well, maybe they tried it and they came up against something that just didn't work, and maybe you're going to find a way over
Yes,
the obstacle that they didn't. It's
yes, maybe.
somebody's got to get over the last hurdle. I hope it's you. That sounds wonderful. Did you what? Well, that must be huge. Do you have anything else you want to tell us about before we wrap up?
Well, I don't know. We have a lot of projects, so we can talk a lot more. So no, no.
Well, I'm
Yeah,
happy
yeah.
to know. I also, I'm happy to tease people with what's possible.
Okay, we have two more games we are developing. They are finished, right? They only need the final art and be sent to the publisher. That are the last one in the family of Santa Cruz, von Manstein, and Castelnuovo. One is called November Crisis, that is about the battle of the university campus in Madrid in November 1936, the Spanish Civil War. And the other is called Forbo 1960. 1916, because it's about the part of the Battle of Verdun in the First World War.
Hmm.
And those are also small print games with not many blocks and moderate length. Yes, and we have more series that have not been released, but I think we will have time in the future to talk about them when they are in the
Yeah,
shelves or in the printers.
yeah. Well,
I'm a very
fantastic.
creative man, so I cannot avoid inventing and designing new games.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think so. You're not alone. That I think there's other designers that have more ideas than time to get them all done. Right? That can be
Yes,
a problem. Well,
absolutely.
it's been wonderful to meet you and get to talk to you and find out about all these games that you're working on. And I think people are now that people hear about it, there's going to be a lot of okay. When are we going to see this great campaigns of the 19th century?
Well, we are beginning playtesting, and I am very thoroughly. So I prefer doing well the designs, so we don't find any spots, blind spots, or any holes, so people can get games that are rounded. So I don't know when they were because we are beginning.
Well, I'll tell anybody out there that wants to get a sneak peek that they should contact MMP and tell them that they're interested in being a playtester because
Yes, of course.
play I don't think any designers ever said no to another playtester.
Yes.
They're
No,
they're
never.
valuable
I
like
will
gold.
never.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I just want to say, yeah, thanks for spending time with me today, and we'll get this out and let more people know about Bellica 3G and Francisco Ronco.
Thank you to you for calling me and giving this change.
Check out Castelnuovo 1539 from Draco Ideas to see Francisco's latest game in action. It has the real Barbarossa in it, like the real Ottoman Barbarossa, the invasion leader. As he mentioned in the interview, it's Francisco's desire to make games on lesser known Spanish history, so I look forward to more of these. Parting shots. Well, with the return of my office, or should I say my reimagined new office, I'm looking at something many of you face. My old office had IKEA modular shelving for the games. I could just keep adding on another row whenever, or I should say another column whenever I needed one. But in this renovation, we've had one wall turned into built in shelves. They're going to look really great. I can still move the shelves up or down, but there's going to be no more adding extra space on the end. So sooner or later, I'll start to be faced with hard choices about which games stay and which ones go to make space for new games. Thinking about my own collection just off the top of my head, I mean, maybe I'll get rid of my entire Commands and Colors Ancient set. That'd probably free up 4 or 5 linear feet. I don't know. It's going to be tough choices. How do you handle storage and storage limits if you have any? I'll have a question about that in this episode's survey, as well as on the poll section of the website. Let me know how you handle things. As always, thanks to all the Pushing Cardboard supporters, whether it's by becoming a Ko-Fi patron or buying swag. If you want to become a supporter, there's links on the website and the newsletter, affiliate links for Cube for Me, Noble Knight Games, all that stuff. And as I said, for every episode, there's a survey. You can launch the survey from a link in the show notes right on your phone or from the website or newsletter, but check it out. I'm always interested in your feedback. If you're not receiving the newsletter and you'd like to, you can sign up at the website. There's one newsletter just for the podcast, which contains links to some of the things we discuss each episode, and another one if you want to be notified of any special events. I barely use that one, maybe once or twice in the last year and a half. And then there's one that's comes out every 2 weeks just to remind you of the live stream topic. Check that out if you can. There's info on the website and the YouTube channel. Or track me down on Discord or by email. I'll get you all sorted out. Until then, have fun pushing cardboard, and maybe by the next time you hear from me, I'll have my space back.